Today is December 5th. The winter meetings are underway, and well, Bryan Reynolds is requested to be traded. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that's, and I didn't say Yins guys. My name is Josh, and I'm joined as always by my brother Jake. What's up, Jake?
How we doing, man? Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off that bad. I was just trying to be a little joke here.
We, for those of you who do not watch on the YouTube channel, we've got a new layout and all that good stuff. And basically me and Jake are on baseball cards now. So when we came back from that, he was holding a bat like he was on a baseball card. It's pretty good. Pretty good. We had a bunch of things to talk about this week. And, it basically all changed when the news came out that Bryan Reynolds was requesting a trade.
Yeah, crazy, man.
We cut a bunch of stuff out so that you guys didn't have to listen to a 2-hour podcast when all you really care and all you really want to hear about is all this Bryan Reynolds stuff. It is the winter meetings. They started today. We're recording this on the 4th. They started today. Not much has happened today. Of course, I haven't.
San Diego this year.
They're in San Diego, and so there's a lot that's. I was gonna say there was gonna be less Pirates talk prior to the other day.
Yeah.
When did that break? Yeah. Was that Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. Or was it just? No, it was just yesterday. It was Saturday. It was just yesterday that this broke. Yeah, for sure. Like, I remember.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was. Yep.
Oh my gosh. So, bear with us a little bit. We are still on kind of reaction mode.
Yeah.
And before we got on here, we usually prep. We usually talk a little bit. For one, it's kind of our chance to kind of catch up a little bit, but we kind of both were like, let's save it. So I got no clue what your process has been through this. It sounds like more serious than like, a player on your baseball team, right? But it's the fact that like we've been talking about this and it's been so clear to us that he was not getting traded.
Mm-hmm.
That was not the intention and that he was happy about that.
Yeah. So
just everywhere. But this is the winter meetings. The Rule 5 draft does happen this week. We're just not going to talk about it though. We will react to it when it happens. It may come up on a couple of these things, but I mean, we're not going down that road. We don't have time for that. But just to get things going, like we do have some things we want to get out of the way here. There are things that still we would like to talk about. I mean, some of it's even like MLB basic stuff. Like I know it's baseball stuff and we're pretty consistent. We talk about that here. And so that's one of the things that, I still feel like it's important for us to go down that road. Oh yeah, I have like a timer. I was going to do like 60 seconds, right? Give me 60 seconds. Yep. That way you guys know you're not going to be in this for the long haul. Give me 60 seconds to run through some things, and I guarantee I'll get done with it before 60 seconds. I guarantee. Now, we're not going straight into Bryan Reynolds in 60 seconds, but we are going to Pirates news in 60 seconds. Where's that timer? Here we go. Ready? Here we go. Fred McGriff elected to the Hall of Fame tonight, receiving all 16 votes of the Contemporary Baseball Era Committee, which means Albert Bell, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Don Mattingly, Dale Murphy, Rafael Palmeiro, and Curt Schilling all left out this time. they'll have to wait another, 3 years or so before their name can come back up. And so still staying consistent with those guys. I think nobody else received more than 8, but he was there. Moving on, Miguel Cabrera calling 2023 his last season. Jacob deGrom signs a 5-year deal with the Texas Rangers, despite not even throwing 100 innings in his last 3 years. Mike Clevenger, 1 year, $12 million to the White Sox. Jose Abreu signed for the Astros for a boatload, showing we were never going to be involved. Kyle Gibson, we were involved with for a second. 1 year deal with Baltimore. Colton Wong traded to the Mariners for Jesse Winker and Abraham Toro. 0. I was
wondering.
I started
you spent a long time on Fred McGriff. I was like, I don't know, man.
Fittingly so. He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I give you a chance to say one thing about any of those. Not each of them if you have one thing about each of them, but if you have something. I like that you said Crime Dog. I did leave that out of my statement there, but go. I'll give you 60 seconds to go through those same things with any comments.
Oh, geez.
You're on the clock.
Okay, Fred McGriff, good. It's about time, dude. Put up great numbers his whole career. He was among the elite the whole time he was playing. Underrated through the era that, a lot of guys were accused of juicing. Good dude. Congrats, bud. Miggy, it's been fun ride. Let's go one more year. Do another special thing like, Pujols, not quite as special as Pujols, but keep your thing going, do your thing. Tip of the cap to you, buddy. DeGrom, I'm with you. Not a lot of work in the last few years, but hey, when he's on that rubber, he's the best. Abreu, Clevenger, we weren't really involved. It is what it is. Gibson, I'm not really upset about that. I wouldn't have been happy or upset whether we signed him or not. Colton Wong, glad I don't have to face you anymore, bud.
All right, so we said our piece on those things. So this is the winter meetings after all. All of those things are, things are going to come up. Things are going to go crazy. And a lot of the Bryan Reynolds stuff is going to go crazy. We will get to that. Trust me. We're about, 7 minutes into this thing. We got plenty of time here. Let's settle in, guys. Let's go through some of the Pirates things that happened this week. And I'll give you I'll pause. And if you have anything to say it, or else I'll just move on to the next thing, which some of these you won't. But actually, no, I'll ask you afterwards. Let me run through them real quick.
All right.
They officially announced the signing of Carlos Santana. In the process, they did DFA Lewin Diaz. He was claimed by the Orioles, so he's completely gone. Miguel Yajure and Ali Sanchez, or Ali Sanchez probably, was placed on waivers and selected. Miggy Yahoo is going to the Giants. Sanchez going to the Diamondbacks. The Cardinals have been recorded as saying they are also. I'll tell you what. Before we do that, let's go. Let's talk about these waivers. These guys that are gone. These are departures. These are see you laters kind of things. And we'll start with Lewin Diaz. Last week we said they could very well DFA Lewin Diaz. Now that they have another first baseman, they could just let him go and let him walk. And it seems that's what they've done. Any surprise there?
No, not really. No.
Okay.
I think we saw that coming.
Okay. Miggy Yahoo, Ali Sanchez. So Sanchez, same sort of thing, right? Waiver claim. And it was one of those things. We've talked about this. Ryan Valade is on this list too, where they claim them, but this isn't one of those we plan on them sticking around. This is it's an opportunistic thing. He could go. So same thing there. But Miggy Yahoo was here a little bit. He was part of the Tyone deal. Where are you at? Because I know we're on record saying we thought there was more, and you've really liked him.
Yeah, I thought he had a lot more potential than what he was able to show in his time here. I think he's going to go out to San Francisco, and I think he's going to figure something out. I still think he's going to be a good pitcher in the major leagues, whether it be out of the bullpen or a starter. I think he's going to figure something out. He's got too good of stuff not to.
And he's one of those guys who his problem is going to be that he was so early to the majors and he's going to run out of options. And he's so young still. that he's just going to be one of those like, yeah, he's not working out here and they're going to ship him off. He's not working out here and they're going to, and then someday it's going to click and he's going to have, 2 or 3 really good years, I think, in the major leagues. And then, maybe that's it. And maybe that's just all that he is, or maybe he ends up being really good. I don't know. The velocity's not there, which the game is so much velocity right now that makes it a little bit, that does raise some questions. Okay. So anyway, speaking of pitching, the Cardinals have been recorded as saying they are also interested in a return of Jose Quintana. And this is one because we've been on this, and I specifically have been on this. I think he needs to come back. I think they need to be aggressive on this one, and they need to get him here so that they don't lose him to a division rival.
Yeah, I think that actually, in my opinion, like I was with you. I thought he'd be a great addition. I think, I didn't think they needed to, but now that the Cardinals are interested, you need to bring him back.
Well, but they need to get a starter who's a veteran who can go out there and be that. You also need left-handed pitching. He fits the bill of all of that.
He does. He absolutely does.
And I felt like because there was familiarity and because he liked his time here and because our pitching staff loved when he was here, I think that's what's important.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Like I wasn't as aggressive as you were about it, but now I'm definitely just as aggressive because even though we're probably not looking at a playoff runs type season, still would just rather not have him on the Cardinals.
Sure. And, likewise, the Carlos Santana kind of thing. It's important to have that type of leadership.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a big piece of that for me. Speaking of players liking other players, let's move on to the next thing. Roberto Perez. We know that this is really split. People want him to come back. People don't want him to come back. I get all of it. All the arguments are good for one or the other. You know what I mean? Like it's good. The one condition that the Pirates seem to be on is that they want to make sure he's healthy. And it seems like that involves him playing winter ball, which I don't know that we've seen yet. If so, it's happened in the last few days and I haven't caught it. So I think they want to see him play winter ball. If he plays winter ball, then the deal probably gets done. And it's going to be what it is. And, we've said go back and listen to some of I don't remember what episode we talked about it, but basically for me, I think the thing was you're nervous about injuries. He should be your backup catcher. If he's not your backup catcher, it should be like he gets this pitcher and the other guy gets these pitchers. And it should be a split staff entirely. You should have 2 starters in that case. And I think that that's going to be an important thing to have happen just because it's big. So with that said, the Pirates pitching staff is still talking about how much they loved his presence and pitching to him. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there. I was kind of on the side of dude's never healthy. It's a waste of a contract, blah, blah, blah. I've said it all. This changes my opinion. It really does. And I think that the health is still a concern, and they're just as concerned. They want to see him playing before they make a deal, all that good stuff. And is he going to be able to stay healthy? I think you're looking for 2 starting catchers if you sign him, like you were saying. But definitely, I'm much more intrigued to see if we can bring him back because of how much our pitchers and the whole pitching staff, reacted to, hey, we want him back, because that makes a big difference. Really does.
Yeah. And so, the other point I was going to say here is because of that, because of all those things that you just said, it doesn't matter what we think about his injury history or whether we want to bring him back or not. It's kind of hard to argue with that. Just to echo what you're saying, it's hard to argue with that. So speaking of catchers and having 2 starting catchers, and we're flying through this, guys, we have to. Sean Murphy's drawing a lot of trade interest. I think I've only heard the Pirates really linked to the Blue Jays. And they're three catchers that they're willing to trade one of. But Sean Murphy, a couple things here. I'd rather not play in that game right now. I've read some about the Braves are out on him recently. That was the last thing. They were in, now they're out. So the asking price must be high. The Guardians are in, and a couple other teams, but specifically the Guardians, because I've heard a lot of the talk that they may be in position. The latest thing I heard, I thought there was like, maybe one or two pitchers, but not Espino, right? But now it seems like there's like three pitchers. They're like, we're not parting with our pitchers. And by saying that, like what you're saying is like, dude, George Valera he's possibly included in a deal here. Now, that may depend on whether or not the Guardians get him or not, right? And, I've a lot of friends who are Guardians fans, and, talking to Josh this week, he was like, if it's Valera, I'd rather just not get Murphy. That's fair. So, I mean, that's how they feel about it, but like that just might mean you miss out on it. And, you're picking. That's fine as a fan. You know what I mean? He's picking. He's saying, no, I'd rather have Valera than Murphy. Murphy's a valuable catcher. He's a Gold Glover. He's a good hitter. There's offensive thing there. But that's a top 100 prospect. And so you're talking about like, I think he has 2, maybe 3 years of control still. And, you're saying, well, what about Andy? What about Davis? Doesn't that kind of mess with their timeline? Are they going to be there and he's still going to be there? So I just think, let's stay away from that. You were going to say before I make my last point about this, which does kind of segue.
No, I was just going to say, I don't really know who Valera is. And some of our listeners probably might not because he's in the Indians or Guardians organization. But you said it, he's a top 100 prospect.
He's their number 2.
And I kind of knew that because I knew where you were going with it.
Yeah.
But,
he's their number 2.
Background.
He looks legit, like legit. Okay. Probably the Guardians have had their struggle with outfielders, and whether that's their fault or just, the players, haven't just panned out. That happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
With the big, Bradley Zimmer and, you know what I mean? Like some of those guys who were just like, yeah, you're just not what we thought you were. And that's, like I said, it takes a lot to execute on prospects. Yeah. So it's of no fault, right? Sometimes they, work out. Most of the time they don't. This guy looks like one of those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He looks like one of those Andrew McCutchen, Starling Marte, Gregory Polanco. And the reason I'm saying that is because like all 3 of those were can't miss prospects, right? 2 of them worked out. One of them didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like as a can't miss perennial, you know what I mean? Yeah. But he looks to be, you know what I mean? He looks to be the real deal. And so with Cleveland in their outfield past, I would be kind of leery of, I'd want to protect those guys too.
Yeah, sure.
Especially with a Bo Naylor coming up already. But anyway, we're not talking about the Guardians here. The thing is that it's going to take a lot. And I think that while we're not playing with Sean Murphy thing, I think the Pirates should stay very close to that situation. Because I think if they were to trade Reynolds, which we'll get into here very shortly, if they were to trade Bryan Reynolds, they need to wait until after this Sean Murphy deal gets done. Because if they're asking for a lot for Murphy and they get a lot, the team who gets Bryan Reynolds should be prepared to top that offer.
Mm-hmm.
He is more valuable than Sean Murphy. And that's not downplaying Sean Murphy. Like, I'd love to have him actually. Like he's for real too. Like he's a solid catcher. Not only hits, but a Gold Glover. And the fact of the matter is that Reynolds should have a higher price tag.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where they need to be if trades are going to happen. And right now, I would say We've been hearing Bryan Reynolds trade rumors as we just full on move into this. Okay, here we go, guys. As we full on move in, we've been hearing Bryan Reynolds trade rumors for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Heavy, right? Anybody listening here could say, oh, it's actually longer than that, whatever. It's been heavy for the last 2 years. And it's been tiresome because it's always been, dude, it's just not going to happen. What you've said is not enough. And also what everyone is saying here is that it's not in their interest to trade him. It's not. Right. And it sounds like maybe the Pirates still aren't interested in trading him. You know what I mean? The quote is, this will have zero impact on our decision making this offseason. He remains a key member of our team. And I think it says, we look forward to the great season he will have next year. Now, you can say what you want about how much of this is wordplay and how much of this is trying to keep the value high, right? You know what I mean? There's the whole leverage situation that we'll get into. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm all over the place with this thing. I have been all over the place with this thing. Just trying to let information come in, see what we find out. We haven't found a lot out yet.
No.
We just know that 1, it's been reported he requested it, and 2, he hasn't come out and denied that. So, because it's been sources, but he hasn't denied anything. And you would think if he didn't say that, his people would come out and say, actually, we did not do that. Nobody's saying we did not do that, which means
right.
Sounds like they did.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's full on get into it. We're not going to take a break today. Let me just take a second. We're just gonna tell you guys without taking the full break here. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's Bridge 2 Buctober. Actually, even on YouTube, it's Bridge 2 Buctober. They do the whole thing now where you can actually do that. But anyway, get on those socials. I'm on Twitter a lot, under the Bridge 2 Buctober Twitter. So like constantly, like just feed it, get in contact, get into the discussions, talk about it, all that stuff. Jake, where do you hear the podcast?
Yeah, the podcasts are available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Video podcast is on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. We like to hear from audience.
Yeah, we do. And that's the thing is, YouTube's pretty cool because you can actually comment right on the video as you're watching it and say you guys are full of crap or, whatever. Whatever. You love the new format. Dude, listen, if you guys aren't, if you're not YouTube watchers of the podcast and you just listen, like I'm all for that. That's, whatever. This would be a good one to just go out and check it out. If you like baseball cards, just go out and check it out, man. I've been excited. And, we have the shirts too.
Josh put a lot of work into this and he's been excited. And for a couple weeks now, he's put in a ton of work.
Dude, I was up till
it looks fantastic, dude.
3 a.m. the other night. But yeah, and there's more too. Like I have some, we've got some shirts and stuff out there for you guys to, wear around and support us and all that stuff. I'm working on some new stuff there too. I wanted to get the layout done, but like this theme is not going to stop here. It's something that we've been talking about that we thought would be really cool for a long time. And so here we are. Right now there's Bryan Reynolds, back of his baseball card kind of is right there on the screen. Kind of, yeah. So anyway, so here we go. I don't even know. I don't know. Like I put these things in order on our notes, but I don't really know what order we really want to go into. What we know is that Bryan Reynolds people, representatives, have made it clear he's ready to get traded. And I'm actually going to start with this. Let's go back to, because I think I put these out of order. Let's go back to October. Everybody's writing their things. Everybody's having communication, talking to Bryan Reynolds. He seemed happy. He seemed satisfied with the situation. He seemed appreciative that the team was not wanting to trade him and that they've been telling him that, apparently, right? I mean, these are the things that we're hearing from people who had conversations with him, that he was excited about the talent on the team, that this was not a thing where he was saying, I'm sick of losing 100 games. This sucks. Like, he wasn't mad when he left the ballpark in October. And so what changed?
Yeah. That's a good question. It has to come down to dollars. You know, he's looking for that extension. They've been in the extension talks.
So, and we're going to do this, because what we're going to do is we're going to play a couple arguments here. Mm-hmm. And I think you and I, first and foremost, let me just, I'm going to say my thing before we go into all this. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of say your thing. Not only am I floored by this, but I just haven't quite understood where I'm at in my head with it yet. Like, I'm still kind of processing. I'm still taking in information. I'm still trying to figure out like where I'm at with this, because I don't think I have enough information to really say like one way or the other how I feel about it. What did you think? I was shocked. It was completely, it was completely different from what I had known to be true. Right? So that's where I'm at. I don't know yet. I don't know. And I know Gary said when I was on the fan forum with him, he said, I know you don't like to take a side. But that's not like, sure, I like to look at all angles. I like to see things from all the perspectives, and I see value in all the different arguments, and like I see truth in all the different arguments. This is sports. It's fun to talk about, right? So that's where we're here. And I just don't know if I have an opinion yet. And I just want to know, before we get into all this stuff, like, where are you at? Because we haven't talked about this.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised. You know, I just assumed from what happened in the arbitration before this year, you know, Nutting came right out and said, I said, lock this guy up. I said, get this deal done. We're not going to arbitration, all that. I honestly, I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to get the deal done as large as Reynolds deserves, just because of Nutting's past.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also on the fence of just maybe this time, because he was so adamant about that, not letting go into arbitration with this guy. You know, I just thought that, not that it would be different, but it would be different.
Okay. John Heyman tweeted that the Pirates had offered Reynolds an extension that would have made him the highest paid Pirate in history by dollar figure, beating the $70 million extension that Ke'Bryan Hayes got. That seems obvious to me. And I don't think anybody's like, I think everyone, when they read that report, was like, at first it was like, wait, no kidding. Like, no kidding.
Right.
Like, that's not a surprise. If they didn't, it'd been like, oh, they lowballed him. Right.
Oh yeah.
And which I've seen, I've seen other reports that we still don't know numbers. But I've seen other reports that is, I don't know if I saved these to my phone or no. I've seen other reports that say that it was not a lowball offer. Like, they didn't lowball him. And, that word I think is a little different. If they would have said, all right, we'll give you 5 years, 75. What is that? Let me pull up my calculator real quick.
Like 17.
Yeah, 15. I should have been able to do that math in my head, but you're talking $15 million a year. Like, no, that's not there. Like, you're not there. If you're talking 5 years, I mean, you're definitely over $100 million. probably,
Right.
I mean, that's 20 million a year. You're probably looking at what, 25? You know what I mean? That's 125. I mean, that's the problem is that Bryan Reynolds is 20. He's going into 28, age 28. Yeah, he's going into age 28 season. This is typically when you sign your big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime between now and 30 or now and 31. The fact that he's not going to be a free agent until before his age 31 season, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he just says, I don't want to sign an extension. Like, that would be reasonable for him to say no, because I can't really prolong free agency. And maybe the Pirates are saying they want to sign him till he's 34. To him, that might be like, I can't sign this deal if I'm signed till I'm 34. I would understand that.
Mm-hmm.
All of this stuff makes sense to me as I say them. So maybe let's get into this. I don't really want to mess around with numbers, because the reason I don't want to is because I would rather have prepared better for that. Like, I would have rather have had some numbers in mind and gone over some of those things rather than try to think of them on the spot. I didn't do that. So I'm not going to go down the speculation of, what does a deal look like? I had written that down literally, but that's not something that I think we can cover unless you have ideas. Because the thing is like, there are some people coming out saying, like, let's just sign him to a long-term deal then instead of trading him. Like, because there are some people saying, yes, he once traded, but if you meet his contract request, does that change? Is he now happy? Or is he at the point now where we already did the thing with arbitration where you guys screwed things up? Now you're screwing this thing up. Like, I'm just done.
Yeah.
So let's make that the next thing. Our first argument is the Pirates are cheap. They're not the amount of money. They're screwing this up with logistics. They ruined the relationship. This is on Nutting. This is on Williams. This is on Sherrington. They treated Reynolds poorly, and he just has to get out. Do you see that? Now, we're making this argument. This isn't meaning this is what I believe, because this is definitely one thing that I could believe. This could be one of those things where I might say, this might be the proof of all the things. And this is the thing right before we get in there, because this is the thing that is going to fly around. I told you so, right? I told you they were going to trade Reynolds. Hold on. They never said they wanted to trade Reynolds.
Right.
This has gone the other direction. The Pirates had zero intentions of trading Bryan Reynolds. Whether you guys are out there saying, I told you he'd be gone, I told you he'd be gone, this has nothing to do with the Pirates. They did not plan on doing this. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't handle things poorly or whatever. We'll get through all this stuff because there's arguments in all these different directions. But you didn't tell anybody so, because it still wasn't true in October.
Right.
When Bryan Reynolds says, I want to play here, I believe that he wanted to play here.
Shoot, it wasn't true in November.
Sure, but they had the conversations face to face with Bryan Reynolds in October. And Bryan Reynolds was pleased.
Right.
And so, when we go there, like, things change. That doesn't mean anyone was right if they were saying that stuff in June.
Right.
That you were still wrong in June, but things change, and something changed here. And this is why we always reluctantly say, oh, well, it won't happen. Well, you can't say it won't because number one, things could change. If the Yankees came with their top two prospects, which by the way, they won't, then you might be really, really pressured into making that move.
Right.
So anyway, things change, and that's what we're dealing with right here. And so I am obviously not optimistic about Bob Nutting. Ready?
Dang it, Bobby.
Like, I'm just not optimistic about the way that things are handled and all that. Did we think maybe there was a change? Maybe. But if the Pirates really screwed this up, and you know what? Hey, the Santana deal, what happened after the Santana deal? There was a change in the conversation by Ben Sherrington. He was saying things that were different. They were saying things about making the 23 team better. And he was, there felt to be some conviction behind it. And I wonder if this Bryan Reynolds stuff had started right around then. And they started saying, look, we'll go for it, Bryan. We want to keep you. Maybe that was what changed their tune. Maybe this argument had started then.
Yeah.
Either way, right now our argument is it didn't. And they're just lousy. And they're screwing this whole thing up. And this rebuild that Sherrington's going through, which, by the way, we just don't know. We don't have the facts on this yet. Maybe it's just going to go awful. And this is a part of it. Because if they're making guys not even want to be there, that's not good.
Right.
So how much validity do you think and how plausible is it that they're just screwing? I mean, your opinion.
It's very plausible.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, it's very plausible. But, you know, and if we're taking this argument and we're saying that this is what's going on, excuse me, but, you know, it's easy to look at this and say, yeah, it's 100% the Pirates' fault. They're not bucking up the money. You know, it's, I mean, it's just, this is what it is to be a Pirates fan. We're not going to lock anyone up. We're never going to do this. Here we go again.
Yeah. Doesn't matter who's in the front office. Nutting controls the whole thing.
Yep. Which,
unfortunately, like that's just so true. And it feels like at a situation like this, not saying that I was 100% like Sherrington's going to fix the whole thing. No, we have our doubts that Nutting is going to allow it to happen when it needs to happen still. You know, we still need to see it happen.
Right.
We like the things that we hear about development and about, you know, the fact that, I don't know, we just like some of the process, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they still have to execute on it. Like saying we have a plan doesn't mean you're going to execute.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, we're still reactive. We're still waiting to hear more information. I want to find out. I would really love to know what the number was.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We got to know the number
because that would make things a lot more clear on which side of the fence we're leaning on.
Sure.
I mean, were they swinging for were they swinging like super low?
Apparently they weren't
for Bryan Reynolds.
Yeah, but apparently they weren't lowballing, but they were just not getting anywhere. That's the thing. They weren't getting anywhere. And maybe that was there's not enough years. Maybe that was there's too many years. Because like I've said, this is your one chance. If you're going to lock me up to 34, then it better be the money goes up. If you're going to take maybe like 1 or 2 years of my free agency so that I can still hit free agency at 32, 33, then maybe I'm okay with like a fair deal that locks up those big years, but he's going to need 30 million at 31 and 32. And I say that saying like, no, I don't think that he's necessarily like MVP every year, 30 million, but like money changes. If I sign a deal that pays me 20 million now, I'm not like, that's not a lot. I mean, it's a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot, but in comparison to other players, Judge is trying to get 40 million, right?
Right.
The big guys, like people make 10 to 20 million right now. When you get over 20 million, you start talking about the elite players. And by all standards of all the people that are writing, he's elite.
Yeah. 100%.
I believe it says it right here in these arguments, like that he's elite. Like that's the word that they use to describe him. And I'm trying to look for the actual sentence because I know that it's in this, but I'm just not. I'm not going to look for it anyway. The thing is if he's in that air, then you got to pay for him in that air.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be north of $20 million per season in every single season.
Just to shed a little bit of this on here. Jose Ramirez just signed a very team-friendly deal. 7 years, $141 million. That's just north of $20 million a year.
Yeah. Yeah, not much, but just north.
Not much, but just north.
Yep. And the thing here, I actually found it. It says that he's been a sought-after trade candidate around the game as a controllable player performing at an elite level for a team in the depths of a lengthy rebuild is the rest of that sentence. But the thing is like, that's what it is. Like, you could make the argument. I mean, I think it would be a fun exercise. I mean, they play a different position, so there's a little bit of difference there, but I think it'd be interesting to look at the Bryan Reynolds up against Jose Ramirez. Because Jose Ramirez is like elite, right? I mean, at least I think he is.
Oh, yeah.
I think
absolutely.
he should be. I think that some of the numbers that he puts up, I mean, they went down a little bit this year, but some of the numbers he puts up, I mean, he's in the MVP conversation every year. I think his power just went down.
He still basically hit 30.
28, didn't he?
280 with 29 homers.
29 homers. So, yeah, he's still there. And he just rakes. He hits a ton of doubles. He's, you know what I mean? Like, and there's not much hole there. Both of them are switch hitters, I think. But Ramirez is a little bit older, right? I mean, especially his experience. Reynolds has 3 years in the majors. Almost 4.
Right.
Almost 4. He's about 9 days short of 4 years in the majors. 9 days. You talk about control, manipulation, and all that stuff. But anyway, and that actually wasn't. He came up because of an injury. So that's kind of weird. We were like, who's Bryan Reynolds? Oh, Cole Tucker's coming up?
This guy.
Oh, and this other Bryan Reynolds guy that we got for Kutch is coming up too. And look at the difference between those two guys. He wasn't early. Tucker was early. Anyway, so let's go to the second argument here. Because I just said that Bryan Reynolds almost has 4 years of service time. And I'm going to make this argument. And like I said, guys, this isn't where I'm at. This isn't what I feel. Although there's some of this that I question. And I don't know if I'm right on this or not. And like I said, I'm not convicted. This isn't like a strong opinion of mine. But let me just take this angle. Who do you think you are? There is a system in place. You get 6 years before you hit free agency. I'm kind of old school in the fact that I'm like, hey, earn your way there. Who are you to be asking for a trade before you've even earned it? The play is there. I'm not saying the numbers aren't there. He's great. We just said he plays at an elite level. But there's something to be said about putting your time in. The system is in place. And you're going outside of the rules here. You're not the rules, but you're kind of going outside of this. Like, who do you think you are? You do your time and you earn these types of things. You get an automatic no trade clause once you're 10 years in the league. Like, these are just things that happen, right? What is it called? 10 and I don't know. There's some kind of rule, right? Where you get like this thing where you can veto trades once you've been in the league for very long because you're considered a veteran. You're considered a guy who's earned his way there. And like, I just don't know if like, there's part of me that questions. Well, no, I'm sorry. We said we were going to go into these arguments, right? So we said we were going to act like we're wholeheartedly on this, whether we are or not. We're not. Neither one of us are. We don't really know. But wholeheartedly, how do you think, like, I don't know if I want him.
Yeah,
What changed? I mean, like, Bryan Reynolds to me he's always been quiet. He never speaks up. He never looks like he's having fun. And it's been okay because I've always seen him as a clock in, clock out kind of guy. I come in, I punch in, I work hard, I don't take plays off. I'm going to give you my best. I'm clocking out and I'm going home and I'm enjoying my time at home.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, I'll be back to do it again. And I'm not going to take it for granted. I'm putting in my time. This is outside of that. For sure, outside of that. I do agree with that. That's not a speculation thing. Requesting a trade before you have been in the league for 4 years is outside of that mentality of being grateful and clocking in, clocking out, and just being a blue collar baseball player. You should be thankful that you're on the field. And I don't say that to say he doesn't deserve money. He's worth the money. Especially on a team that, like, most people are only going to the game to see Bryan Reynolds. When you look at the roster, I mean, obviously it's starting to change a little bit. O'Neal Cruz is bringing people there. You know, Key Bryan still does play a part in that because he's so fun to watch and because they locked him up. I think that matters to a fan. But like, I'm not, you know, there is part of this. How far do you go down that path where you kind of wonder, like, is some of this on Bryan Reynolds? Like, how could you come out and do this?
Yeah, and it's I'm going to lean on this crutch just one more time, just because it's recent. It was just last year that they locked up Jose Ramirez for that team friendly deal, and then you got a guy like Reynolds, and you're like, oh, maybe he'll do that too. And wait, you're not going to do that, or really? Like, you like it here, and you're just like, nah, you ain't paying me enough money. Get out of here. Small budget team. Somebody else will pay me if you don't. So I'm just get me out of here now. Like, really?
Yeah, let me go now. He very well, if he was unhappy with the contract negotiations, assuming he is, like, let's off the argument on to truth, he's not happy with him. And so, like, you know, but we don't know what those offers are.
Right.
If it's the Jose Ramirez deal, I think he probably should be saying, like, oh, great, let's do it. If it's, you know, if he's saying, no, I think you're going to need to get me up higher than that, you got to beat the Jose Ramirez deal. Then I think at that point I'm saying, okay, like, I'm okay with that. And let's say that's it. I'm okay with him wanting it, but I'm still kind of like, I think I'll play out my contract and I'll go to free agency.
Yeah.
On time. Because here's what I do believe. He has every right to do that. He does not have to sign an extension. He very well could say, no, I think when I've done my 6 years, I want to go to free agency, because that's a privilege. To enter free agency is a privilege for these players. Some players, Bryan Reynolds, I thought was one of them, would much rather just know where he is.
Right.
Hey, I just want to play for one team. I want to settle in and I don't want to have to deal with drama. And he felt like one of those guys. He did not feel like a guy to me who was like, I don't mind bouncing around to get the best money. You know what I mean? Or in the best situation. Some guys will sign and say, sure, but if we're not contending, I expect to be dealt to a team who is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm chasing a ring. Some people would rather have that security. I want to play Major League Baseball. I want to know that that I'm taken care of, that my family's taken care of, and that my kids' families are taken care of. And probably their kids' families are taken care of, right? With the money that these guys are making. Right. So, like, get your bag, but I'd rather, you know, I'm not going to get hung up over $10 million. You know what I mean? Total money.
Yeah.
And some guys are like that. You know, some guys are like that. Other guys, they have every right. When they hit 6 years and they go to free agency, they have every right. That is a privilege for them to be able to do that. And I think that they deserve it. I think the players are who brings the people.
Absolutely.
So this is the problem I have with it, is on the Reynolds side of things. I have no problem with you saying, I'd rather not sign. I think our negotiation has gone nowhere. And like I said, we talked about whether that was a bad negotiation piece on the Pirates side or not. When we find that out, that'll answer one of those questions. But even if it was bad, I don't know what it would be for me to justify Bryan Reynolds' camp in saying, just get me out of here now. Like, what was so bad? It can't be a low ball offer.
Somebody almost had to say something.
Yeah, to me, a low ball offer is not enough reason to request a trade. It's not.
Right.
Somebody had to say, we are not winning until you're a free agent. And so we want to sign you for those years. And let him say, like, I'm not going 3 more years of this. I'm not doing this for 3 more years. That would be justification.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me we're going to be bad for 3 more years and I'm not going to get a chance to be on a good team until I'm 31, 32 years old? No. Get me out of here. That would be what it would take for me. I don't care if they offered him 5 years and 75. To me, that's not enough reason. That you can be offended by that and still say, I think I'll just go to free agency. If you guys want to play ball with this number, you contact me back. Otherwise, I'm just going to do my time and hit free agency when it's due, knowing that he's going to get traded anyway. The Pirates can't just let him go to free agency. He'll get dealt.
Right.
Maybe not this year, but you know what I'm saying? And if they don't feel like they can compete with him, they move him. If things go bad, you know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
But leave it in the Pirates' hands at that point. I think that this is, like I said, somebody had to say something or say, dude, you're not worth that much or something like that, and then slam him, because we've heard front offices on other teams go into arbitration and slamming players.
Yeah.
And that's not fun either. Now, he didn't have to go to arbitration this year. He signed for this year.
Right.
So there's none of that played. So I just don't know, man. I just feel like we have to know more. We have to know what happened, what changed things, because it does not feel right to me. He does not feel like the type to be like that, to say, I haven't put my time in yet, but I want to be treated like I have. And maybe I'm completely off base on that. Maybe that's a really old school take on my part. You know what I mean? And it very well could be. And I would be welcome to, you know, to that argument. Because I don't know. This has thrown me off a little bit. To me, I'm kind of a guy who says I'll do my time and I'll earn my way, but I have to earn it. It's not just given to me. And that's the way I've kind of felt things. You know what I mean? I'll go through my time. And I don't know. Do you feel like there's some of that? Like, do you feel like that's maybe just where we grew up?
Probably. I mean,
I just feel like it's like, clock
Yeah,
in,
I mean,
clock out, do
we've
your
both
time.
been-
Eventually, you know what I mean?
yeah, and we've both been accused of having a lot of old school thoughts on here, and we get that, and it's kind of, you're right. It's the way we were brought up. It's the way the culture around where we grew up. You know, that's just what we know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so. This is just a baffling thing to me, because this is not supposed to be baseball. This is supposed to be the football guys, the basketball guys. I want out of here. I'm a baby. Just get me out of here. That usually doesn't happen in baseball. You don't get guys requesting trades early. People get traded.
that's a good, yeah. Well, you know what's different though with baseball and football is those guys are paid right out of the gate. There is no, you have 6 years before, you know what I mean? All that stuff doesn't exist.
Money aside.
No, but I'm
Money
saying that kind of explains that.
Yeah.
And I think maybe, you know, because we're baseball guys, maybe we see that more as sure, there is a lot of,
The NBA is absolutely horrible with it.
yeah.
There's constantly people, the players do literally run that league. This guy wants traded. He picks his team. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The types of things that go on in the NBA.
Yeah.
But
the only thing, and I'm this is probably semantics, right? But Like when you say the players run that league, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they kind of should, but not in the way that you're saying. But like that line, like it is tough because they do deserve it. I don't know. It is tough. And like I said, it's just a completely different ballgame in those leagues because they're impact players as soon as they get out of college. Baseball's just different, and it's been different, and maybe it shouldn't be different. Maybe that's why we're having this discussion. Maybe this is part of it. I don't really know. I'm open to all those things, right? But for me, it does, like, just in life, it just feels like, you know, when you first get hired on, you got 90 days. They could let you go after 90 days if it's not working, and you can't, you know what I mean? Like, there's just things like that. Like, you got to kind of do your time. And I don't know. I guess I'm kind of one of those, like, shut up and do your work. You know what I mean? Like, and ultimately this is
kind of the culture of, that's kind of the culture of Pirates baseball, though, that we've always been a blue collar team.
I don't want to say that though. That's the culture of Pittsburgh baseball. Like that's what the fans of Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh style baseball is blue collar, go do your work. So like aside from, you know, that's the only reason I say that is like, aside from Pirates, aside from nutting saying, yes, you know what I mean? You don't need to get paid, but still like that's, that kind of proves your point. That is the culture of what we expect. We don't like it when guys dog.
No.
And so part of this has a little bit of that feeling. And I've always thought, man, Reynolds is perfect for Pittsburgh because he is that.
Yeah.
This just looks different. Now, like we said, it comes out that somebody, like you said, somebody said something. Either somebody offended him in those negotiations, or the point that I made is if they told him it's going to be 3 years before they win and they want him signed to an extension because they want him there when they win and it's not going to happen, then that might be, I'm not doing this for 3 more years. And that would be one of those situations where I'd be like, you might be so upset that you tell them to move. And then there's the thought process. And you tell me if there's any belief here. Is this a tactic on Reynolds' part to get them to do more?
That's a good question. And it's a good thought. I mean, maybe it is, or maybe somebody said something about his mom. And he's like, nope, I'm out.
So you're still on the somebody if somebody said something.
No, I didn't think about it that way, as in like a tactic on him to try to get them to kind of move closer to his terms. But I mean, I guess it could be a play. I don't know. I don't know how these negotiations go, man. We have no inside information on anything that.
Hear me. This is funny. I expect the listeners to laugh at this because I'm not being for real. We've avoided this on the podcast. We maybe made a joke here or there, but we've avoided this. But it's out there. It's on Twitter. People talk about it. When does Bryan Reynolds struggle? When does he struggle? Do you have the ability to say it or do I have to?
I'm just gonna.
Mama said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But he struggles when his wife is pregnant. Could you imagine? I think it's coincidence, whatever. Could you imagine the Pirates saying, we'll only sign you to an extension if you don't have any more kids?
Oh my gosh.
I'm out of here, dude. Gosh. Right? That would be an I'm out of here moment.
Yes.
That would be 100%. Dude, trade me right now. I can't believe that came out of your mouth. We're done here. Yeah. That's a trade me moment. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a trade me moment.
All right, so here's the question. Because we're going over. It's 59 minutes in as far as what my recording says anyway. So, dude, we're on this thing. Right? Here we go. This is too big to let go. We're gonna try to wrap this up. I know we've been really intentional about staying under an hour with these last few episodes, but like, come on, this is the Bryan Reynolds thing, and we really did speed into this. Throw me a bone here, because I want to know. This is a 2-part question, but I'm going to start with the first one. do the Pirates trade Bryan Reynolds or not? Let's just say this. During the winter meetings. Or at least lay some serious ground, like before spring training. Or, you know what I mean? In general, like, do they move this? Do they move him?
Listen, we're terrible at predictions.
But like, okay, you're right.
And
we are.
But as far as I'm concerned, all I can say is, do they? It just depends on what comes across the table. There's no way for me to sit here and say, yeah, they move him.
Okay.
If they get the right deal, if they get the right offer, I think there's definitely going to be more talk than there would have been.
Well,
the discussions will get further than they would have been.
Well, and I said it before. We heard a lot about Bryan Reynolds trades for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we will start to see like legitimate offers.
Real talks.
I think we'll see legitimate offers on the table, not the crap offers we've seen in the past. I think now I think that even then people were like, what if we did this? Like, I think they knew it wasn't real and that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And they were trying to sway the needle down.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, now it's real. Now it's like, well, we'll, that's my next question. So here's, I don't know if they do or not. I'm there. They say this will have zero impact on our decision-making this offseason. Yeah, right? They say that.
They say that.
Okay. Should they?
If they get an opportunity to make the 2023 team better by moving him, they should.
What about the 2024 team? What if it's the 2024 team?
It's
because here's what I'm saying. If you get a legit prospect that's not ready this year, but like maybe in 24,
or maybe by the end of this year he gets his cup.
Maybe
gets his feet wet this year,
and then you can still replace him with a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? There's guys out there right now that you could go out. I mean, my goodness, it's hilarious to say it because everybody's saying it anyway. Just let Cody Bellinger play center field this year. You know, I mean, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not saying let's go get Cody Bellinger. I'm saying there are guys out there who you can sign to a 1-year deal.
Absolutely.
And I mean, the same thing that we're doing, I mean, not the same thing we're doing at first, because I don't know that we have a successor there, but, but like it's the idea that to say like, I mean, it doesn't have to make 23 better. But what about the argument that like, if he's going to be a butt all year next year, then yeah, they should. If he's going to, make it hard for other guys to keep developing and do better and believe in the team. If he's going to be a problem in the clubhouse, which he's never been,
right?
At least not to our knowledge. So maybe there's a should in that. So with that said,
there absolutely could be.
With that said, last question. Does this give other teams the leverage? Now that they know he wants out.
I don't think so.
And why not?
I think you're still going to get out of a deal what you deserve to get out of a deal for a guy of his caliber with that many years of control.
And when you say, I think that's the key words, that many years of control. The Pirates absolutely do not have to trade him. The system says they have him for 3 more years. Mm-hmm. What's in place right now? Now, if you guys want to talk about the system's bad, that's another discussion. And I'd welcome that discussion as well. Like we could talk about
just
that,
not tonight.
But that's not what we're talking about right now, right? What we're talking about is what's in place right now is that this is how things work. And the Pirates could let him play for this team for 3 more years. Here's what I will say too. I don't think you're going to get a bad Bryan Reynolds for 3 years just because you kept him around. Oh, what kind of production are you going to get out of him if he doesn't want to be there? How good's he going to be? He wants to get paid. Mm-hmm. He's not going to intentionally perform bad. And also, if he has a hard time playing hard, go get a different job. you don't belong here. Somebody else will appreciate that position and they'll play it and be happy about it.
Absolutely.
Granted, I will say this, Bryan Reynolds is not a guy who's not going to play hard. It just, nothing in his career has ever shown that he's going to have a hard time getting into the game. No, he's playing Major League Baseball. If you have a hard time getting into the game in Major League Baseball, you need to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just for you. You need to talk to somebody. There's no level of entitlement that, I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. Like, you're playing Major League Baseball. And I don't think Bryan Reynolds I don't think that he's above that. I think that you'll see him play hard and play well. There won't be a selfish at bat.
Yeah, and it's
not, you know what I'm saying?
It's not like he's got anything against the guy across from him in the locker room either.
That's very true. I mean, unless one of those guys told him not to have any more kids. But you're right. It's not about them, right? Something happened that changed that. I do not think this gives anybody any extra leverage. I think if anything, now that you feel it's real, I think you'll start seeing real offers.
Yeah.
Not these fake things that we've heard from people like Clint Frazier and Andujar, which is hilarious because Andujar plays for us now, but that's the joke, right? And it's just, I think that you will get legitimate offers on the table and that we haven't seen before. But here's what you'll also get. Now that everybody is willing to give up the right pieces, they're going to like try to throw David Bednar into the deal. I can see it now. They're going to be like, yeah, we'll do that. But I mean, like, we should get Bednar too. What?
Yeah.
Where are we going here? Like, yeah, we'll do that deal, but we also get O'Neal Cruz. All right. Let's get real.
Yeah, the buck stops here.
Yeah, and what I'm hoping out of this, because this is bad. This is bad no matter what way you look at it. It looks bad for the Pirates, whether there's any truth to that or not. There probably is going to be truth to that. It looks bad. It is bad. It doesn't have to mean that it stays there. It will still be perceived as bad. But if they let something like this go without changing, then it's even worse.
Yeah.
They should be taking a situation like this and saying, we can't let this kind of crap happen. Not here. Not here. We've got enough problems. We've got problems with not being able to compete financially with New York and LA. Straight up. I know Nutting is cheap, but that team, even if he wasn't, will not compete financially with New York and LA. It will not happen. Whether you want it to or not, they do not have that kind of money. They have more than what they're spending. No doubt. But they don't have New York and LA money. They don't have that market. It's not even close. No. And until that system changes, it's not going to be close. However, they could pay Bryan Reynolds.
Absolutely.
I think Cincinnati is definitely in a bigger market and they definitely have more money. But how many years ago was it that Votto got $20 million a year? And they're not, while they do have more money than what's in Pittsburgh, it can't be by that much more. Sure, they have a huge market, but it's not a lot of big cities.
Right.
You know what I mean? It can't be that much bigger. Say what you want about San Diego. That's an awful take. They're like the 5th biggest city in America. Don't give me that. And I know it doesn't matter how big the city is. It does. It does. There's more people.
Yeah.
It's clear. But Cincinnati is not far off, and that's a reasonable comparison.
Yeah.
I think it's closer to Cleveland, and so's our money, but their ownership's bad there too. Their front office is great. Their ownership's bad. The way they handled that name change, that name could have been changed 10 years ago. They've been complaining about that since we were kids. I remember going up to Cleveland and seeing people out there complaining about it, right? What are they complaining about? Like, when I was a kid, I had no idea. And nobody cared back then. Anyway, Dude, this is crazy to me. This came out of nowhere. This was the last thing I expected to happen, I would say. In the Bryan Reynolds situation, I believe this is the last thing I expected to happen.
Yeah, same.
I expected they're not going to come to a deal. I expected we'll deal with extensions talk next year. I expected we're never going to get an extension with him. I expected to hear stuff like that. This to me is different. And that's the part that has me confused. If you would have told me, I got to take a drink here. If you would have told me this is going to be handled poorly by the Pirates, they are not going to offer the amount of money he's worth, and they will deal him maybe before his last year. Maybe even before 24. I would have said, I just don't see it happening before 24. But I very much thought he's not getting an extension. Because of his age and because he didn't get to the majors until he was 26 years old. Right? 26, is that right? 24, okay. I don't know why I was thinking that. Oh, I think I'm thinking about DeGrom. What a hack. That's not true. That's not true. He's the best pitcher in baseball when he's on the field. So 24, but still, he didn't get a full season in. His first full season, 25. That's late right now. You know what I mean? 24 to 26 used to be the norm. It's really moved to like 22, 24 now.
Yeah.
And not that that's terrible if you come up later than that. But it's just the idea that, like, those kind of guys that come up 25 or later, they don't sign that extension unless it's mega, unless it's a 10-year deal. And most of those guys that don't come up until that age don't get 10-year deals.
Yeah, I mean, you got Aaron Judge, who just hit 62 home runs, and he's not going to get a 10-year deal.
Did he come up? I mean, I know he came up like a little, like he wasn't early because he had a lot of the tall guy struggles that we see with, with Cruz and that. Yeah, 24 years old. He played 27 games. He's on the same timeline. And here he is hitting free agency for the first time going into age 31. That's the same exact timeline as Bryan Reynolds. And yeah, I mean, tell me that Bryan Reynolds is going to do that because Judge at 25 years old had 52 home runs. Now he had back-to-back 27 home run seasons, so that kind of lines up with the Reynolds stuff. But then to come out on an age 29, and that would be telling me that Bryan Reynolds is going to come out next year and hit 39 home runs and then 62 the next year. Actually, no, not even. The 2020 year of Judge's, which is hard because it's 2020. I don't know, man. He's certainly not getting to that Judge category.
No, I'm just talking about.
I know.
Talking about timeline and free agency.
Yeah, I'm going off here.
You know
I'm rabbit trailing. That's on me. We're already over. I shouldn't be rabbit trailing. But yeah, that's kind of what I thought. The Judge trajectory as far as age and free agency goes, all other things aside, he only has one chance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's before 2026.
Yeah,
that's his one chance.
The whole time.
That's his
we've
one.
Been talking about that
if you,
the whole time.
You're not going to buy his free agent years away from him unless, for one, they're like player options where he can opt out and go to free agency, right? Hey, let's lock you up for your age 31 and 32 seasons, but you get a chance before that 31 season to opt out. And go to free agency so if we're not competing and you don't think we're going to be competing for the next 2 years, or he blows up even better than he is and he knows he can really get paid, he can opt out and go to free agency. That's the only way you're locking that guy up. I'm sorry. It's just, we talked about an extension and I told you, you're only going to buy 1 year, maybe 2 years of free agency if you make it really worth it. But the more you think about it, man, the harder it feels like it could be possibly worth it. How are you going to tell a guy that he's going to go to free agency again at 33 and expect to make that? Because you could pay him $30 million a year for those 2 years, and he still missed out on some money because of the fact that he's missing out on that. The teams that will go 6 with him in 2026, the teams that will go, I'll sign you from age 31 to 37. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
To pay for those early years. You know what I mean? Early, and then I don't know, man. I don't think they can extend him at this point. I think that is done.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think there's some that say money talks. If you offer him the money that he wanted, maybe he then has a change of heart. I don't think so. I think to ask for a trade before you're even in your free agent years, I think somebody had to say something.
Yeah,
I think
the relationship had to go south.
Something had to if not, then this is on Bryan Reynolds. And let me just say that maybe this is my last thought here. I would expect that from Nutting's side before I would expect it from Reynolds' side.
Yeah.
Man, and as a fan of the team and talking about your favorite team that way, like that's not what you're supposed to do. But
right.
But this is still Pittsburgh. This is still the same town. And the fact that we call it a town. If you don't want to be here, I think there's a lot of fans that are going to say, I don't want you here.
Yeah. There's going to be fans that boo him opening day.
I wonder.
If he's still here.
I wonder. Maybe not. Maybe those fans aren't going to the game because they're already booing. But like there's a certain level of pride in Pittsburgh to where you say, no, we want people who want to be here. You don't want to be here, we don't want you here. I've already seen it. And like I said, all of the arguments, guys, all of it, whatever your side is, no matter how you feel about it, that's how you feel about it. And that's the good thing about sports is that you're entitled to that opinion. And I think that it makes discussion good. If we all agreed on everything, we wouldn't talk about anything. And that's why these disagreements are okay. But we just don't want to just, throw everybody else's opinions out the window. The fact that they have a different opinion with you is what makes us have discussion. And that's what we like. So we want to hear the discussion. And I'm going to leave it at this here because I know that we're a very positive podcast, right? I mean, we try to be positive about our favorite team. And we try to avoid some of those. I mean, we had a hard time saying the laughable, pregnant thing because we don't like to go there.
Yeah.
And I think this is why. This is something that I heard this morning at a place I go every Sunday morning. And it made me think of this, right? It says, and this was encouragement. One final thing. I know you guys have heard this before. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. And not about other things. I just say that to say, like, sometimes we avoid the negative things and just talk about the positive things. That doesn't mean there aren't negative things. And this is one of those things that's like, this could come out ugly.
Yeah.
And that's not fun. So I say, if we trade him, let's just move forward. Make sure it's a deal that's going to blow this thing and say, okay, if it's going to go bad, then let's at least get some kind of win out of this. And Sherrington and Williams and
dang it, Bobby.
Even you, change and make sure that this kind of crap doesn't happen here. Because I'll tell you right now, if it happens in New York, nobody cares. Because they'll win next year regardless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's so much hate already coming our way that you can't afford crap like this to happen.
Yep.
So whether it's okay for Bryan Reynolds to do this or not, it should have never got to this point. You should be treating a guy like that like gold.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got any final thoughts? Because I literally have to shut up now.
I mean, this with all this going down and all the stuff that we've talked about here today with Reynolds and the whole trade situation. Ultimately, we got no control. What's going to happen is going to happen. And the greatest part about it, there's still going to be baseball in Pittsburgh come next year.
Some would say that's not great.
Remember when you had to shut up?
You're right. I do. Okay, so outside of that, no, go ahead. I want you to make sure that you've said your thing.
The fact that baseball's baseball, and these people are going to come and go, and that's just the nature of the game. It's the nature of business aspect of the game. It sucks. It's hard to deal with, but
yeah, this isn't 1979
right.
anymore, right? You can't people just don't play for the team and then they just play for them until they want out. Because back then it was a lot easier to ask for a trade because there was no such thing as free agency. So asking for a trade back then was, to me, that would have been a completely different thing because there's no end. But when they put an end to it and they say, no, this is when you earn it. Well, I think that's what they said. I think that you just don't do this. But once again, I could change my mind too. So, all right. What is this? This is the 5th, right? So this is Monday the 5th. The winter meetings go on this week. The Rule 5 draft. Yajure and Sanchez were put on waivers because they wanted to clear a spot for the Rule 5 draft. So next week we're going to get into the Rule 5 draft. Next week we're probably going to get into more of this Reynolds stuff if anything happens. But as far as this situation, unless new information comes out, I don't see us going down this path again. So you know what I mean? That's why we went long today. We've said what we need to say. If more things come out, I think, by what we said today, I think it's there. It's out there. Nobody has any answers yet. So if you're out there saying you know more than other people, like, you don't have answers either. So just be honest with you. But you don't have answers. But so we'll react to the Rule 5 draft next week. If we lose anybody, if we pick anybody up, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe no video next week. We don't really know yet. That's next week, right?
No,
yeah, we're going to be in person next week. You're right.
Nope.
It's the week after. All right, I'm going to shut up. Can we finish this thing? Because I'm about finished here.
Let's go, Bucks.
Let's go, Bucks. Regardless, let's go, Bucks, because that's our freaking team. All right.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!